It's the last week of June 2025. I'm Dave. I'm here with Andrew, who may or may not own a Labubu, and you're listening to BV Weekly. This week, we'll be talking about the new Greet Death and other new albums, Witch Club Satan, Citizen, and more. Andrew, do you or do you not own a Labubu?
Well, I may or may not have two in my vicinity right now. So I guess yes, I own two Labubus. They are my wife's. But
likely story. I think like 2 weeks ago, I had no idea what a Labubu was. I kind of maybe saw the name and saw them around, but didn't realize this was a thing going on. And then once I did realize what they were, it just feels like it's all Labubus all the time.
I mean, in my household, it's all Labubus all the time. We've been trying for weeks to get these, and all of a sudden we were able to get two. So the effort has paid off. It is, if you haven't been on the Labubu hunt, it's not easy. It's like Beanie Babies on steroids.
And if you're wondering, no children live in Andrew's home. But
hey, there's nothing wrong with my 35-year-old wife wanting Labubus.
Also not a child, Georgia Maq of Camp Cope, who just came through New York City and played a rare solo show at Union Pool that I went to, along with Amanda, our colleague Amanda. And not only was that an amazing show, but there was, in fact, a Labubu prominently hanging on her mic stand. And she worked that Labubu into the show all night. At first, she really talked a lot of trash about the Labubu. She was talking about how much she hates Labubus and that, they represent the worst parts of capitalism and pollution and whatnot. But throughout the night, she talked about how she's been learning to love her Labubu and can't explain it. But for some reason, she's so happy to have it. She did not buy it for herself. It was a gift, possibly by someone who knew how much she disliked them, actually. So, yeah, that was fun. And also just an amazing show all night. It was so great to see Georgia. Wish you were there.
Yeah, I haven't seen her play since Camp Cope were around.
Right. So Camp Cope broke up a few years ago at this point. Australian rock band. How would you describe them?
I guess like indie emo.
Put out Socialize and Make Friends in 2018, which was not only
How to Socialize and Make Friends.
How to Socialize and Make Friends in 2018, which was not only our number one album of the year on BrooklynVegan that year, but my personal favorite of the year, and honestly, one of my favorite albums of all time, which I didn't see that coming. I still put it on, and it still just makes me feel a certain way.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, they're a really special band. I think, it's sad that they left, but also they left they have such a solid discography. So I feel like if they do decide to come back one day, they never let themselves fade out and put out a bad record or something like that.
No, and Georgia just needed to move on. Front woman, Georgia Maq. They're an Australian band, but since Camp Cope broke up, Georgia Maq has moved to LA. Also a big topic of her stage banter and new material, which she was playing. The solo set at Union Pool was actually all new material. She said to the crowd, the sold out crowd, that she wouldn't be playing any Camp Cope songs. There were some ahs, but yeah, she said she doesn't feel right playing Camp Cope songs right now, and that the new material really reflects where she's at, and the new material is amazing. So I thought I'd be bummed not to hear even one Camp Cope song in the set, but I kind of feel like even more than other recent solo material she's put out since the band broke up, this new set of solo material, which she said is coming on a new EP, just really felt like it kind of hit that spot for Camp Cope. So yeah, I'm excited about that.
I heard she did play an AI song, though.
Haha, controversially, as she also introed Yeah, what's it? Please remind me of the name.
Something with cigarettes, but it's like I could look up the actual title, but it's like this song that AI wrote, and I think the premise was like if AI wrote like a feminist anthem or like something like that. And it's like about it's just like it's hilarious. Like it's genuinely funny. Even I mean, I understand some people might say that if it's created by AI, it's just horrible and can't be funny. But I think that Georgia thinks it's funny, and the crowd definitely like knew it because I saw some video where people were singing along. But
Oh yeah, it
yeah,
was
she
definitely a
played a
major highlight.
human cover of it, which
Yeah,
is
10 Drunk Cigarettes
right. That's
actually
it.
is the name. And
Yeah.
it was a major highlight of the night. Very, very good. Very funny. And yeah, have you been to any shows?
No, not since that turnover show we talked about last week. I mean, my week's kind of, I mean, as a New Yorker, the biggest news of the week for me was Zoran Mamdani having the big upset against Cuomo. Um, Unfortunately, Justin Brannan from Indecision didn't win his election for comptroller, both of which we talked about last week. But yeah, I have not, otherwise, haven't been up to much.
Yeah, so it means that we might get a new Indecision album. At least that's what Tom said on a recent Axe to Grind. He said if Justin loses this election, there is a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance.
And it also means that the next mayor of New York City very well may be an ex-rapper.
It's true. True. What else were you up to this week?
Actually, tonight in Prospect Park, they're having a screening of The Greatest Night in Pop, which is that documentary about We Are the World, which got nominated for Emmys and Grammys. And the reason why this is personally so exciting is because that documentary was directed by Bao Nguyen, who most unfamously was an ex Brooklyn Vegan photographer, longtime friend. So really excited for Bao about that, and that he'll be in attendance tonight in Prospect Park doing a Q&A. So I'm excited to go see him speak about the movie, see the movie outside. That's free in Prospect Park on Friday if you happen to be listening to this on the day it came out and live in Brooklyn. But yeah, Bao's done like amazing in the he's done so many good documentaries. He did in 2012, he did that Once in a Lullaby PS22 chorus doc. Do you remember the PS22 chorus? Whatever happened to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I do remember them. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, they used to do all those viral covers that
Mm-hmm.
is literally the school in Staten Island where the music teacher would have all the kids sing pop songs or rock songs and make YouTube videos of them, and they just always would get popular, and then celebrities would start coming in for and showing up in the videos. And I haven't checked in with them for a while, but actually a friend of mine, John, decided to make a documentary about them. I actually introduced John to Bao, who ended up working on that documentary. Since then, Bao worked on the 2020 documentary about Bruce Lee called Be Water. Then, like I said, The Greatest Night in Pop, which was last year, and he's now can call himself Emmy and Grammy nominated. And he kind of doesn't slow down. This year, he did that documentary about the famous Napalm Girl photo from the Vietnam War, which he kind of uncovered this scandal related to who actually shot that photo. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it is really exciting to see like, Brooklyn Vegan alumni out there just really, really killing it. So
Yeah. And Greatest Night of Pop, I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix too, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
so not that I attended this show since it happened in Dublin and I live in New York, but one of the live music moments from the past week that definitely caught my eye was Olivia Rodrigo covering Fontaines D.C. while in Dublin. A nice little follow up to we talked on a past episode about her bringing David Byrne on stage to do a Talking Head song. So, I think we've everybody I think in the music criticism world who talks about Olivia like kind of draws these lines of how she references like more sort of alternative rock stuff. But to go from doing a Talking Head song with David Byrne to covering a Fontaines DC song, it feels like she's like, really introducing her crowd to some cool stuff lately. And it's, and I was at the show with David Byrne. So when I say introducing, like, there were snarky comments on our Instagram video, people being like, the crowd doesn't even appreciate what's happening. And it's like, okay, but they're also experiencing it for the first time in that case. And, this could be a really important gateway. So I don't know why everybody has to be so snobby about it. But yeah, I mean, if even 1,000 people at that Dublin show went home and Googled Fontaines D.C., even if 100 people did, I mean, that's awesome. That's a huge win. And like, to me, like covers were always a big gateway growing up. So I think it's really cool that she's like one of the biggest pop stars in the world covering this indie rock band who's, I mean, pretty big in their own right, but like definitely not on her level.
No, yeah, it's awesome.
They also, for what it's worth, have Elton John calling them the best band going right now. So I guess must be nice to be Fontaines D.C.
Olivia also brought the Breeders out on tour not long ago.
Yeah, I mean that was so cool, obviously, and also perfect for like the sort of Gen X parent with Gen Alpha child. Like, I'm sure there were a lot of like people who brought their kid to see her, and then were like, "Hey, I'm a Breeders fan." So that was also like a nice, like even just from that angle, is cool. But also, again, I definitely hope that people in the audience were like, "Hey, this opening band actually sounds a little bit like some of Olivia's songs." I think what she's doing, what Chapel Roan is doing, is really unique to see that right now. To see pop that isn't just kind of referencing like other pop. It doesn't feel like it's written by the same machine that wrote the last few hits that are like, oh, as long as it sounds like the last hit, then it's going to be good. It's like they're like clearly doing something different, and I think that's why it's so exciting.
What about what Blink 182 is doing?
Yeah, definitely, definitely a parallel there. What I believe you're referring to is that they have an upcoming tour with Alkaline Trio, and they just added some new openers this week, including Scal, Drug Church, and End It, all of whom are from the hardcore scene. And it's definitely something Blink's been doing lately. They had Drain on a show on the last tour. They did a full tour with Turnstile in 2023. So again, it's like, it's really cool. I mean, I think there's absolutely no reason that Blink needs to be putting on for the current hardcore scene. They could do whatever. Like they could have any opener and the shows would do just as well. So the fact that they are, like Olivia, using their big platform to put on for like these rising, smaller, awesome bands, like actually in the punk scene, a scene that Blink themselves, were in a long time ago, I think that's awesome. And I also think it actually could have some kind of impact, because like it's so interesting to me when punk bands become just genuinely pop stars, because it's like, even though Blink are so big, and it's like, you don't even have to know what the word punk means to know how to sing. Like literally, like when I go to weddings, they all play All the Small Things. When I go to Knicks games, they do a karaoke thing. And the last 2 times I went, they did All the Small Things. Like, you don't have to know what punk is to know every word to a Blink-182 hit. But I still think they have tons of fans who are also fans of punk music in general. So you have to imagine like some 30, 35, 40-year-old person going to see Blink who maybe hasn't checked in with new music in a while. Then they see Scowl or Drug Church open the show, and they're like, this is great. This is the kind of music that I like. So I think that's awesome that they're doing that.
Definitely. For Scal, they've got some experience here. Early in Scal's career, they went out with somebody a lot more controversial than Blink 182, which of course was Limp Bizkit, who they opened for at Madison Square Garden, among other places. I feel like, the tide has turned where people don't really complain. Well, unless you decide to open for a band who's kind of canceled. But if you're opening for big bands as a cool little band, it used to be like, oh, why are you selling out? But now it's like, no way, End It gets to open for Blink 182. But I do think Scal kind of tested the limits of that when they decided to tour with Limp Bizkit of all bands. Although Limp Bizkit's return, possibly due to the costume changes, they were a lot more well received than you would think.
Yeah, I mean,
in
I
recent
think
years.
that it was genuinely funny.
Yeah.
And then two, like I think Limp Bizkit's return, they leaned into being in on the joke. Like their album was called Limp Bizkit Still Sucks and stuff. And it was like, I, some people would say that Limp Bizkit were always more in on the joke than we thought, but they were definitely in on the joke when they came back. So I think that helped too, because it felt like they were a little self-aware. And then also like I interviewed Scal after the Limp Bizkit tour, and they said that that was actually some of the best crowd reactions they got, which I can kind of see. I can see how like a Limp Bizkit crowd who are, you know, probably just there to have a good time, and Scal puts on a great show, and you know they're like Cat goes crazy. He's got like the dyed hair and stuff, so it's like very like you know you're seeing something. But they're not just like this band that's kind of standing up there. So they know how to rile up the crowd. So I could kind of see how they would do well on the Limp Bizkit tour.
Is it possible that Limp Bizkit are more in on the joke than Blink are in on their joke?
What is the Blink joke?
You tell me. Maybe you're not in on the Blink joke.
Well, I I think that what's really unique about Blink, like you saw it with End It, is like the singer of End It posted on I think Instagram like, oh, like I, you know, definitely had like a Blink poster in my room growing up or something. Like if you play punk music, Blink were probably your gateway. So I feel like it's like, and it continues. Like it was that way 10 years ago, and it's still that way. Like the amount of people I've talked to, bands I've interviewed that are just like, my introduction to punk is a lot like everybody else my age, Blink 182, you know, like they have this kind of forever respect because they helped so many people find punk. So I feel like when some of those people choose to never go as pop as Blink, but still have to respect Blink. So when Blink is like, hey, can this small hardcore band open for us? The singer is like, oh, like I loved you guys when I was a kid. I remember seeing Dive, like a shoegaze band, open for Blink, and Cole on stage being like, I think the first song I learned on guitar was, I want to say he said, "What's My Age Again?" Like it's not it's not even in punk. It's just alternative music in general. Blink was this gateway band, and I feel like people just have all this love for them because they're like, I wouldn't be where I am without this band. I personally would not be where I am without this band. They were absolutely my gateway into punk. So I think that it's really interesting. But yeah, I think they have this respect from the punk community forever, despite being the band that when they did put out Enema of the State, like all the snobby punks were like, this is the worst thing to ever happen. And you know, similar to nu metal, the snobs lost. They
Right.
always lose. Never listen to them.
All right. So continuing on the trend of bands who have recently or are about to tour with Turnstile, Citizen put out an anniversary reissue today.
Yeah, they just did a 10th anniversary reissue for Everybody's Going to Heaven, which I think is the most important Citizen album. And for many years, it was probably also considered by fans to be like the least liked Citizen album. Uh, but if you're unfamiliar or like don't get why I praise it so much, I'll try to keep this short. But basically, like Citizen put out Youth in 2013. It was their debut record, and it was like, I mean, as far as the at the time underground emo scene went, it was pretty much a hit. And then this was around the time where a lot of bands were going towards softer sounds, shoegaze. Their Turnover, who were like the closest related band to Citizen, like they were always associated with each other. They were on the like very parallel rise. Turnover had just done Peripheral Vision, which is like this dream pop record. We were talking last week about Turnover playing that in full for its 10th anniversary. Citizen opened that show, and they also toured together when they were like little baby bands. So all these bands were kind of doing this softer thing. Like Title Fight did Hyperview that same year, which was their shoegazy record. And Citizen went in the total opposite direction. They made this like caustic, dark, post-hardcore album that had obvious cues of like the Jesus Lizard and Nirvana's In Utero and stuff like that, like more noisy post-hardcore in the sort of like, not post-hardcore in like the kind of emo sense, but more in like the kind of like, again, Jesus Lizard kind of sense. And I mean, at first, like people didn't know what to expect. Like the first tour they did after it came out was Warped Tour, And the Warped Tour crowds were like, what is this? And the people who probably would have liked it, like the crowd who would have been listening to like Piss Jeans or Mets or those kind of bands, I don't think they knew that this album existed. And if they did know, they were probably like, oh, Citizen is not like a Warped Tour band. Like it was this double-edged sword where like the Warped Tour crowd doesn't like it and the people who would like it think they're a Warped Tour band. So a Title Fight went through that same thing with Hyperview, honestly. In any case, the record was so badass to just like completely like buck against every trend happening. Like it was like they could have made another record like Youth, absolutely not. They could have gone shoegaze, not that either. That nobody in their scene was doing anything like this. And then it really put them on the path though towards every record being different. And they ended up crafting this catalog where like now I think Citizen have 5 albums and all of them are so distinctly different. And the reason I say that this is their most important is because I don't think the Citizen catalog that now exists, that now actually is very much loved by fans, I don't think it would happen if they didn't make this sort of like jarring shift on their second album to put them on that path. And now I think this album is liked by fans a lot more than it was when it came out. I still love it. I still think it's some of their best music. So yeah, I'm stoked that it's getting a little bit of attention for its 10th anniversary. They have a reissue out on Run for Cover today. It's got some bonus tracks. It has a song that was like a pretty rare B-side, like a flexi only kind of thing at the time, called Nail in Your Hand. And it has Wisp, who's like, I guess ironically, this shoegaze musician who's like really taking off now, doing a reimagining of one of the songs. And then it has demos from the era. It's only out digitally now. It's coming out physically in October. And actually, we have an exclusive Bloodshot Red vinyl variant, limited to 250 copies, available in the online Brooklyn Vegan store. So pick that up if you like this record or Citizen or whatever. And yeah, they're also playing it in full, one time only, like a hometown area show in Detroit. And it's a really cool lineup on that show, too. It's Saves the Day, No Warning, and Fear Dorian, who's this rising rapper. So it's pretty interesting.
Fear Dorian plays on so many cool punk shows.
I know. I mean, he's obviously into punk. So
yeah, I just saw him I saw him on an otherwise mostly all screamo bill.
But you like newer Citizen.
Yeah, so I was just even re-listening to it. What's the newest album called?
The newest album's called Calling the Dogs.
Right. Where they went like, you know, I would often say that songs on there reminded me of Phoenix. Like they're doing like the post-punk revival. You wouldn't call it indie pop, post-punk, whatever you want to call it. It's not, you wouldn't call that synth pop, would you?
No, I don't think there's any synths on the record.
There's no synths on the record. But yeah, no, that was a surprise to me because I wasn't really paying attention to Citizen back then. I was too worried they were a Warped Tour band. But no, the new album especially, it was one of the first Citizen albums that I got into in real time and wasn't revisiting later. Like I love Youth now, but wasn't like you listening to Youth when it came out. And so yeah, I was surprised. Speaking of bands going caustic and screamy directions, the new The World Is album, been really digging those new tracks.
Yeah, this is crazy to see, I think. I mean, so the World Is are putting out a record this year called Dreams of Being Dust, and 3 songs are out so far. One came out last year, it felt like kind of a continuation of the proggier vibes of their last record, Illusory Walls. But then earlier this year, they put out just a straight up like political hardcore song. And their newer member, Anthony Gesa, he sings lead on it. I'm pretty sure. And like, he was not in the band until more recently. So that could be a factor, but really it's like Chris Teddy, who's the guitar player and in-house producer, and Stephen Buttery, the drummer, who have been in the band forever. I mean, they pretty much like grew up in the Connecticut hardcore scene. So it's not like, oh, all of a sudden the World Is are into hardcore. It's more like the World Is were always into hardcore and they're finally doing it. And there was like even a quote in the press release that said like from Chris being like, when I first met Steven, like one of the first bands we connected on was Snapcase. But at the time, the World Is were doing this more like lighter, post-rocky, emo, indie rock thing. So it just didn't make sense to do that. And now on their 5th record, they're like, fuck it, let's do whatever we want. So yeah, it's like the new single features Brendan Murphy from Counterparts and End. Also, Chris produced the record with his studio partner Greg Thomas, who's in End. But yeah, it's like the world is are just being like, all right, let's do hardcore. I haven't heard the whole album yet, so like I don't know what the rest of it sounds like. But there's like the new single is kind of like a post-hardcore, a little bit of metalcore. The last single was just straight up hardcore punk, and it's cool. I mean, and it's also really interesting for me to see like this comes only a year after the last Foxing album, where they kind of went like full screamo, and like the world is in Foxing. We're always sort of in this like creative arms race, like leapfrogging each other, influencing each other. And so I don't know if that's still happening or if it's coincidental, but to see World Is and Foxing this far along in their career, both on their fifth records, both going towards like screamo and hardcore, it's pretty interesting to see.
New Foxing album with the screams. I think it, again, this was not a band whose earlier albums I was listening to in real time, but ironically, their album before this last one, where they did go synth pop, did I get it right this time?
Yeah, this time
yeah. This they did go synth pop. That I would loved that album. That one strangely got me really into Foxing, but the new one with the screams, huge fan of screams. My favorite Foxing album yet. So that was like total surprise. I was more into Foxing on this last album than ever. Now, Foxing has always been your favorite band. Now, also
but yeah, no, I love
my
them.
favorite band. So we keep talking about all these bands that switch directions, and a lot of these bands know each other, toured with each other. The World Is have gone screamy. Foxing have gone screamy. All these bands are or have been emo. Give me an example. Give me your 5 best examples of emo bands going heavy.
Well, probably going to go with some of the ones we've talked about. In no particular order. I mean, have to have that Citizen album, Everybody's Going to Heaven. Like I said, it's just like to see this kind of rising emo band just go total Jesus Lizard at a time when nobody in the scene was doing that. Such a badass move. Then you got to have that Foxing record, which again, like if you listen to Foxing's first EP, there's like a little bit of screamo on it, and they were like playing shows with those like early emo revival bands. There were usually screamo bands on those bills, and you heard like it seep into their sound a little bit, but they pretty quickly went away from that. So to see them 5 albums in be like, let's just make the most screamo album that we've ever made is, and that like you said, it's your favorite so far. You're not alone. Like similar to Citizen, where like sometimes it took a while for fans to like get over their attachment to the first record. I would see Foxing. I think Foxing's best album is Nearer My God still, but I would see Foxing play shows and I'm like, the Albatross, their first album, is their worst record, with all due respect. And fans only want that every time. And then finally on the 5th record, it was like the first time I saw Foxing that the majority of people in the room wanted the new record more than they wanted the Albatross. And I was like, wow. So all this time, Foxing just needed to go screamo. Crazy. Because, you know, sometimes like Citizen, the opposite happens where people are like, what the hell is this? I know it's new, but I'll throw The World Is on there too. I mean, you know, maybe, you know, this is all off the cuff, so maybe with more thought, I'd have a different top 5, but just so cool to see The World Is doing this. I think they rip at heavy stuff. And I also think what World Is and Foxing have in common is they do heavy, screamy stuff in a way that still sounds like them. And that's really cool. Like, I really like when you hear a band make a pivot, but it still sounds like that band in this really unique way. That's really cool. 2 more. Okay, I gotta have Microwave's 3rd record, which kind of similar to Citizen was like kind of this like In Utero style kind of pivot. To me, that's my favorite Microwave record. Like I want to hear them do more kind of caustic post-hardcore like that. Like all due respect to what they do otherwise, but that is my favorite version of Microwave. And again, I think it's a little bit of a lesser liked album by their fan base, but gotta give my praise to that one. One more. Again, off the cuff, I'd be in between that Pool Kids EP called Pool, which was kind of a cheeky like Code Orange reference, where like Code Orange were called Code Orange Kids, and then they became Code Orange and got more hardcore. And Pool Kids made an EP just called Pool, like dropping the word kids, and it was like very hardcore. And I think they did it a second time too, and it's like legitimately great. Like I'm like, Pool Kids should do more hardcore. They're like actually good at it. It's not just like this fun side, like it is kind of like this side projecty thing, but it's also like good enough that I would be down to hear more of it. I would love to hear more of it. And then I guess I'm between that and that last Ben Quad EP. Ben Quad are like this rising younger emo band. I guess Pool Kids, Ben Quad and Pool Kids, both kind of in that fifth wave of emo, is what the kids are calling it these days. Um, and Ben Quad kind of started as more of like a Midwest emo thing, and then they signed to Pure Noise, and they made this full on screamo EP. And it's so good, and I actually like it more than their Midwest emo stuff. I don't like. I'm really curious to hear like if it's a one off or if the next record goes back to what they were, or if it maybe combines the two. I would love to hear them combine the two things because I think that would be like ultimate Ben Quad. I do also love their Midwest emo stuff. Okay, so that's like 6 with 2 tied in for the for that fifth one, I guess. But yeah,
Solid list.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's time we talk about the new Greet Death album.
Sounds good.
Just to connect it to things we've been talking about. I saw Greet Death on tour with Foxing and Home Is Where a few years ago. Not long before that, they actually toured with The World Is. They've toured with big pop punk bands. They toured with Say Anything not long ago. An upcoming tour, they're touring with a synth pop band, National Language, a very big, catchy, fun Brooklyn synth pop band. How do Greet Death fit into this puzzle?
I don't know, but I do love their new record. I think it's their best yet. It's called Die in Love. It's the kind of the narrative surrounding it is like Greet Death just were always known for these like really nihilistic songs. I mean, they're called Greet Death. They have records called New Low and New Hell, and they're just like be these depressing, downer, death obsessed songs. And this new one, they like set out to write love songs. But then it ultimately did become still kind of sad, hence Die in Love. And they actually unfortunately had some close people to them pass away during the time they were writing the record. So there was also some sort of real life occurrences that made its way into the lyrics. But yeah, I just think it's like their most musically varied album yet. There's like some really beautiful pop songs like Country Girl. And there's also some really dark folk songs that I like a lot. And also shoegaze, like I guess they would have been considered overall a shoegaze band. But I think what makes them so great is they are a shoegaze band who do not sound anything like My Bloody Valentine Worship or Hum Worship or Deftones Worship or like whatever other band that you just base your career off of. Like they just kind of do shoegaze in a really unique way. And I think that's pretty rare to see. So I really, really like the shoegaze songs they do. Also, so this is like, speaking of the narrative of the record, like Harper, who's one of the lead singers and songwriters, she came out as a trans woman after writing the record, but before recording it. So it's the songs weren't written about that, but it does feel, especially on a song like Country Girl, which is kind of this self-love anthem. And like Eli Ennis, our friend who wrote a big feature on this record for Stereo Gum, kind of called it like an unintentional autobiographical song. And it's like, I do think that kind of going through the motions of identity discovery kind of did help Harper write some of these like brighter songs that sound a little bit more like freeing, I guess. Like, it's like, and again, like, it's like this self-love anthem. It's like kind of like knowing yourself and loving yourself and finding yourself. I think that kind of was built into the older stuff being so depressing and this one being a little more happy. So I don't want to misframe the album as being about that, but I think that does kind of play a little bit of a role, and it's interesting to hear and really, really cool. So yeah, I think it's their best record yet. Probably one of my favorite records I've heard this year so far. It's still early, so, but I feel like, especially within the realm of indie rock, definitely one of my favorite indie rock records I've heard this year. So, and I think you like it too, right?
It is definitely one of my favorite albums of the year. It's out today, and everybody should definitely go listen to this Greet Death record. I'm definitely going to be I know this is going to make it to the end of the year with me. Definitely one of my favorites of the year. I feel like this band should be a lot bigger than they are, and I feel like they could get a lot bigger. But also, I was reading also in that interview with Eli, I think they don't really want to be a full-time band.
Mm-hmm.
They really...
Like, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little more nuanced than that. I think they were more just like, we don't want to like tour every year, make records every 2 years. I think they want to be full-time, but just like on their own pace, at their own pace.
At their own pace with no... They want to have day jobs.
Right.
They don't want to depend just on music for their living. They don't want that to compromise their art. They want to be able to do it at their own pace and never burn out or feel like they're compromising anything. And you got to respect that. But it does make you wonder if so see them when you can. Although they say that, but I was actually looking at their recent tour dates. They are always on tour. So for a band to have full-time jobs and say this is not their main thing, they tour a lot and they take big tours. I would not expect a band who isn't going for it to open for a synth pop band like they are on their upcoming tour, or spend like a month on the road with Say Anything last year or whenever that was. But yeah, I mean, it's good. I'm happy they tour a lot. I'm definitely not complaining, and definitely go see them when you can. They're great.
Yeah. And actually it's kind of interesting, but another record out this week that I really, really love is actually kind of the story of the band singer coming out as a trans woman. Just kind of coincidental timing. But this band Vandaliers, this Texas country punk band, their singer Jenny Rose came out as a trans woman during the writing of the record, and the record explores her journey with gender dysphoria. And I also think it's their best yet. And again, it's kind of interesting how it's like it's just like the record feels more like open and free. And it's like, I do think it's kind of a reflection of just really being honest with yourself and knowing yourself. And so it's super cool to hear. And like, yeah, I mean, if you are not familiar with Vandaliers, you like anything from Lucero to Old 97s to Turnpike Troubadours to Flogging Molly, all of whom they've toured with, for what it's worth, I think that they'd be up your alley. It's like they're kind of like MO is too punk for country, too country for punk, and really, really, really cool band. And this record is super awesome.
What else is out today?
Some other cool stuff for sure. Speaking of bands who are just kind of working at their own pace, Moving Mountains are back with their first album in 12 years called Pruning of the Lower Limbs. It's really, really good, post-rocky emo. And it's not like this kind of big comeback. It's more just like they have day jobs and it's been 12 years and here's a record, and it's really, really good. Dead Guy, speaking of long-awaited albums, metalcore pioneers Dead Guy are back with their first album in 30 years. They were broken up for a very long time. They've been playing some shows the past couple of years. New album's called Near Death Travel Services, and it basically sounds exactly like Dead Guy have always sounded, which is pretty cool because Dead Guy are awesome. Isabella Love Story is back with a new record called Vanity. It's like it's kind of like this mix of like Latin pop and reggaeton with kind of like Ray of Light era Madonna and early Britney. And there's also like other cool stuff in there, like kind of like Southern rap production. And she also like loves punk, and there's this kind of like gritty edge to it too. Like, I wouldn't say it sounds punk, but it's like you can just feel the influence. Really, really cool. I think even if you don't think you like pop music or reggaeton, I think might surprise you. Willie Carlisle is back with a new record called Winged Victory. Willie is like a country and folk singer, and this record is self-produced and it's very raw. It's kind of got like a Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger vibe, and it does have some traditional songs like early 20th century workers anthems, and it's both sad and powerful how much those songs from 100 years ago resonate today. Actually, the biggest record of the week is probably Lord's new record. Amanda reviews that one in notable releases. She also reviews the new Laura Stevenson record. And then over in Indie Basement, Bill's got reviews of the new Frankie Cosmo's BC Camplight, Janine's Lightheaded, and some other stuff that we didn't review, but like is worth bringing up. The new Pigpen album is out today. It's the band from Celebrity Chef and the Bear actor-producer Maddie Matheson, with Wade from Alexis on Fire and Daniel Romano, all of whom came up in the Ontario hardcore scene together. it's a cool record. The new Waves is out today. Fishbone's first album in a long time is out today. So yeah, a lot of cool music.
Yeah, Lord also, of course, with a new album coming out, has a big tour coming up. So I thought I'd look at the openers on that one since that's a big topic this week. And
Mm-hmm.
she's got the Japanese House, Chanel Beads. Is that how you say that?
I
Blood
think so.
Orange. Blood Orange, who's also opening
Some of the Turnstile tour.
Turnstile Day. I didn't
Mhm.
want to get that wrong. Yeah. Empress of. And my favorite one on here, and I always butcher her name, even though I've seen her live and have learned how to say it. There's just some names you can never remember. Nilüfer Yanya. Nilüfer.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I say it, but I could be wrong. But yeah, no, it's super cool to see that.
Yeah. And Lord, especially in New York, although the internet doesn't really matter where she's doing it, is pretty obvious. She has an album coming out. She's made appearances in the past few weeks in Washington Square Park, in Baby's All Right, which is a small club, in the Rough Trade record store in New York City. So
And
all
she
these,
references Baby's All Right in the lyrics to What Was That?
yes, rest in peace again, Billy Jones. So yeah, it's the week of Lord.
Yeah. Also, a couple singles out this week that I want to give a shout out to. So Erykah Badu and The Alchemist have a long teased collaborative album coming. They're also doing some tour dates together, and they put out the first two songs. One is called Next to You. It's streaming everywhere, and there's another one that's only on Amazon Music. But Next to You, I especially really like. I'm so excited for new Erykah Badu, and just the prospect of it being fully produced by The Alchemist, and then the song really delivers it. He samples Mobb Deep on it, so Erykah Badu singing over a Mobb Deep beat is what you can expect, and it sounds as good as in execution as on paper. I am so excited for the new Greg Freeman album. His third single came out this week called Gallic Shrug. It's like, I guess, like elevator pitch is like Songs Ohio meets Pavement. Also recommended if you like MJ Lenderman and that kind of stuff. But I think that's going to end up being one of my favorite indie rock records of the year. Every single's been great. Yeah. What about you? Any other songs this week stuck out to you?
What about that Witch Club Satan?
That song's awesome.
Witch Club Satan, a Norwegian female, which important to note here, female, because also super feminist black metal group who are smashing the patriarchy one scream and blast beat at a time.
Ooh, got to put that in the next press release. Yeah, they're sick. Like we did a post on the site this week about them, so like read more there if you're curious. But yeah, it's this all female black metal trio from Norway, and their songs are, like you said, like black metal can be so male dominated. It can also be so apolitical, and as we know, sometimes apolitical means secretly Nazi. So it's really refreshing to see this band that, like, they have overtly like pro-Palestine messages, and they talk about environmentalism, and again, a lot about fighting against sexism and the patriarchy. And it's just like, and it's not just in the music, but the imagery they have, like on stage and in their music videos. It's like costume changes, rituals, nudity, blood, all this stuff that's just very, like, really challenges what you expect from sort of like the cloaked corpse paint, all male black metal thing. And, not surprisingly, it's ruffled some feathers of some generally male black metal purists, but like, good. It's supposed to, and good.
Their videos are high budget, like horror movies full of pagan rituals. Their live show is high energy, like you said, a lot to look at. So yeah, this band is just a lot of fun. Purists be damned.
All right, before we go, what else happened this week, Dave?
TV on the Radio announced a big fest in Brooklyn called Under the K Bridge, where we actually just saw Turnstile with Flying Lotus, Sudan Archives, more Mother Spelling, more to be announced. That's going to be super fun.
And what's the fest called?
Oh, it's called There Goes the Neighborhood. Sorry.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Go on.
It's been a busy week for Johnny Marr, who joined the on stage for the first time since 1990 and also released a collaboration with Franz Ferdinand. AFI and Thrice both announced headlining tours in a few years, hoping for new albums on the way from both of them. Gwar announced a 40th anniversary tour with Helmet, Dwarves, and Blood Vulture, who, speaking of AFI, have got an AFI feature on their new album that just came out on Pure Noise, which, by the way, that's the
It's Jordan from 2 Minutes to Late Night.
right, who is also responsible for all those amazing pandemic collabs. What were those called?
I forget, but yeah, those like these all-star collaborations doing covers. And I think AFI was involved in that too, whether it was a member of AFI or a cover of AFI or both. But yeah. So anyway.
Boris announced a 20th anniversary tour for Pink with Cloakroom, Uniform, Agriculture, and more. Those will be amazing shows. Dolly Parton is back doing a Vegas residency. Cardi B finally announced her new album. I feel like you might have something to say about this.
Oh man, this is crazy because I genuinely thought that Cardi B was just never going to make a second record. It was like all these singles have come out. She's constantly delaying it. And I started to be like, you know what? Maybe she doesn't need a record. Like I love albums. I don't want albums to die, but let's be realistic. Like they are not what they used to be, especially with streaming services. There's no reason that she could easily just drop 5 singles every year for the rest of her career and never make an album. But she's putting out an album. It has 23 songs. 2 of them are WAP and Up, which are already massive hits. And she's actually responded to backlash, people being like, oh, you shouldn't include those songs. It's not fair. They're already hits. And like, I like what she said. She was basically like, she basically said those songs deserve a home. And I'm like, yeah, because in 20, 30, 40 years, it's just nice if some of her best songs are on an album. You know, I mean, it's like, look at like the Beatles' American pressing of Magical Mystery Tour that like tacked on singles like Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane. It's just easier that they're on the album now, you know? Like, so why not? Yeah, throw them on. And I'm excited to hear it. Everything she's put out in the past 7 years has been great. So finally, Cardi B is dropping a record. I'm so excited. What else happened this week?
Queens of the Stone Age announced a theater tour. The Lemonheads, who have not put out a record since way before Cardi B, announced their first one in 19 years. Great guests on there: Jay Mascis, Juliana Hatfield, Adam Green, and others.
Wait, just because you made the Cardi B comparison, just to be clear, this is her like sophomore record. So like you don't usually wait 7 years to follow a breakthrough debut.
I think people know that. Come on.
I'm just saying. All right, go on.
Nitzareb announced they're going to continue to tour without Douglas McCarthy, who passed away. And Streetlight Manifesto shared their first 3 songs in their first album in 12 years, not quite as long as Lemonheads. And that's been another week of BV Weekly. So thanks again for checking in. Always check the website, BrooklynVegan.com, the shop full of exclusive vinyl variants and non-exclusive vinyl at shop.BrooklynVegan.com. And we'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much for tuning in to BV Weekly. If you like what you heard, like the episode, subscribe, give us a good rating, tell your friend about us. All those little things go a really long way. We really appreciate it. Dave and I will be back every Friday morning with updates on news, albums, songs, and more. And thanks so much to Joe D'Agostino from Cymbals E Guitars and Empty Country for the great theme song, our co-producer Kevin Duffel, our mix engineer Nick Gray. See you next week.